talking with people about how to have a great retirement. This is the Rock Your Retirement Show. We don't talk about money, but we talk about almost everything else you need to rock your retirement. Now, here's your host, Kathy Klein.
Welcome back to the Rock Your Retirement Show. I am here with Barb and we have a guest, Marlene Scheipel. Dr. Scheipel, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Kathy. Thank you, Barb. I'm really delighted to be here.
Tell us a little bit about your background and why you're here.
All right. I have a PhD in counseling psychology and I am a licensed life coach as well. I started my practice in 1975, my psychology practice, and I introduced the life coaching element of it only to realize that I'd always done life coaching. So although I was also doing psychotherapy, the life coaching part was just such a natural thing to me to be working on issues with clients in the present, coming up with solutions, encouraging them to follow those solutions and seeing them have amazing results. So it is something that is a passion for me, my profession. I tell people that I don't work because I don't work. And I just have a really enjoyable time seeing client success and enjoying participating in that. It's an amazing profession.
That's awesome. One of the things you coach people on is retirement. And that's why we brought you on the show today. So thank you.
My pleasure.
So if someone were to contact you, Doctor, what would the process be and what would the goals be as far as how you're going to help life coach them to be ready for retirement, or if they're in the middle of retirement and struggling? Just kind of describe the steps someone would go through if they wanted to embark on a journey with you.
Well, the clients that I have worked with so far came to me because they were struggling. So that can be, they came into my office. I have advertising out that gives my phone number, my website, which is thelifecoachdrdr.com, has contact information on it. It has a contact form. And so it's either the brick and mortar or the online elements. But the people that have come to me have come because they're having problems. They're either really, really fearful about retirement. They're uncertain what this completely new journey is going to be like for them. Often they're panicked. For some, retirement caught them off guard, meaning they ended up getting rid of their job and they're of such an age and now they're in retirement. For some people, they've actually planned more, but it still is catching them off. I believe the financial services industry has done a great job of talking with people and saying, here's something you need. You need to make sure the more money you have together, the clearer you are about how long that's going to last. The mental health field has not done that good a job in having people be really clear. Here are some of the elements you're going to deal with. Here's how you release emotion about being uncomfortable about that. Here's how you create a solid plan in that direction. And so people are reaching their retirement and not having any of that in place. Sure. But the thing that really was alarming to me was I read a series of different news stories, let's say over a month, and it was talking about someone who had had a really good career. They had been productive. They had their creativity. They felt good. They were managers. They were had purpose and meaning and direction each and every day, and were enjoying it. And they retired. And 6 months later, they had developed a chronic illness and they were dead.
It does happen, especially with people in high-powered positions that don't know what to do with themselves.
Exactly.
Once they retire.
And then with that information in mind, I had it happen with two of my friends.
Oh, no.
Yes. And I was even talking to them about have a plan, be really clear what you want that time of your life to be. And it struck me that for a lot of people, they had gone into their profession, sort of fallen into it, not done a lot of planning. Oh, in my life, I want to end up being this high-ranking manager, and I want to have all of these people, and I want to be in charge of programs, and I want to see those programs succeed. They didn't really start out that way. They kind of took a job that was offered them and then advanced through the ranks and ended up in that position because they had advanced themselves, but it wasn't really ever a planned out thing. So they didn't know the process of looking forward and saying, what do I want? Okay, I can have whatever I choose. What is that? They kind of had other people assign projects to them or others people give them direction and hadn't really set an overriding master plan for themselves and weren't clear on even the process of starting that.
Well, how do we start? Let's say we have someone listening today and they haven't started. Let's say it's their first time they've ever listened to the show. What kind of advice would you give them? Where do you start? What should they be doing right now?
Yes. First total place to start is to take a deep breath. Exhale deeply, inhale deeply, and elongate the exhale so that they get their parasympathetic nervous system going. Really fast physiology lesson. Our autonomic nervous system is made up of the sympathetic and the parasympathetic nervous systems. Sympathetic nervous system is the fight or flight. If somebody was just listening the first time, I may have totally startled and panicked them. So now they need to get that parasympathetic nervous system going, which is the part that brings us back down. I would say taking several slow, deep breaths and at the same time telling yourself, this is doable and there's hope to get there. So how would you start? After that, it would be to answer the question, what do I really want in my life? I'm starting a brand new chapter. I'm going to have the time to do it, but I might not have had the luxury for before. What do I want it to be? And start making a list. What are those things that I said, when I retire, I'm going to do this? Write those things down. Then add to that, when I was a kid, I really loved doing what? Write that down. And when I've imagined myself retired, the vision was of me doing what? Just write all those things down. That is a place to start.
And we've talked about that on this very show because
Good.
I had to do something very similar in 2020. I'd worked for government for 44 years. And that's how I found this show. I was looking for how do I plan for my retirement because I was a planner in a planning department. So, I understood planning for 40 years out for future development, but what about for my life? And I think that's something that Kathy's done a great job of recognizing in her practice, which was financial planning, that while people were spending a huge amount of time on their planning their finances, very oftentimes either they died or they would get divorced, or the two people, if they were a married couple, would drive each other crazy because none of this had to be navigated before.
Yes.
And looking at all aspects of your life, not just travel and vacation, but your relationships with your families, your spiritual life, your hobbies, and of course, your friends, and then your significant other. And so those are the pillars of this show. And we talk about different aspects of it, but I'd say you're totally right. It starts with a list. For me, it did. Mm-hmm. List of what the possibilities were. And then what was realistic and what was the highest priority. My husband had to make his own list though, because his list was different than mine, which was okay. We recognized that. But then we had to figure out, where do we overlap? And it was the middle of the pandemic. And so we did something in hindsight financially we shouldn't have done, but we bought a motorhome. We bought him a huge motorhome and we went on the road. for like 7 months. And we saw a national park and we hiked and we did all these wonderful things. And so for me, it was a great transition from, 9 to 5 or 12-hour days in an office to something completely different. But we had to navigate how our relationship had changed, because never in the 45 years we'd been married had we ever been in the same space. Even with the pandemic, we'd never been in the same space at the same time as you are in a motorhome.
And now you were in the smallest space possible.
Exactly. So there was a lot of times where you need to go golfing and I'm going to go to the gym just to kind of have space. And we learned that having time in our own identity and his own identity, and then where did we overlap, was incredibly important. And so I agree with your starting point. I think what we found hard was we were afraid to make a mistake. We were afraid to make an investment in something that was really expensive, which we did.
Other than the motorhome.
But I'm here to say, once you've done that for 2 years and you decide, this isn't working so well, maybe you take a bit of a hit financially, but at least we tried. We didn't just sit at home and, just stay there staring at each other. And so I like your starting point. It's a very wise way to start. I think maybe you could talk a little bit about how you help your clients prioritize and make those value judgments of, okay, what is your next right thing?
Okay. And I wanted to commend you on coming up with a plan and then recognizing maybe the first principle of retirement, which is there's space and time for changing the plan.
Right.
So you kind of work with one iteration, one idea of it. And once that stops doing for you what it needs to, then you kind of choose something that fits you for that time. It isn't just, okay, I made one plan. It's I make the plan and then I evaluate the plan and I modify the plan to even better fit. Okay.
Absolutely.
But answering your question, once they get those items down, okay, then I would have them prioritize them in similar to what you said. What matters the most for you? Okay. What areas are strong? What areas are lacking? There can be different characteristics, different resources of the person that we need to bring out. And so I've already had clients who were really sure what they were upset about, that in fact, they didn't even see how their retirement could be a better version of their life than what they'd already experienced and thought they were already past the best of their life.
You know what that reminds me of? It reminds me of the high school cheerleader, the high school football star that was the big shot in high school, and it feels like those were the best years of their life. And it kind of reminds me of that stereotype, what you just said.
Glory days. It was so good then. But I think with any sort of space between the workaday where you owe your soul to the company store, or you have a boss, or you have a schedule, our favorite saying was, we'll get to it Saturday, right? Because you don't get stuff during the week. We'll get to it Saturday. But then saying, but every day Saturday. And so it took pressure off to get a list done or accomplish it. If it was yard work or a project, we'd say, well, you know what? We got enough done today. We can work on it tomorrow. And that was a epiphany for us, because we had always been goal oriented and schedule oriented and planning oriented. And you don't have to tire yourself out as much. You can take a little break and be in the moment, as opposed to always looking at what is to do. We started looking at what was to did. What did we get done? And celebrating that instead of always striving for the next thing. I think you just get in a habit when you're working to accomplish and set a goal, whereas the retirement gift is you can take a little more time and do it at your own pace.
How did you remedy the fear of making a mistake? Because we all make mistakes. How did you get past that? Because that's going to keep you from doing anything if you stay in that state.
Yeah, I think that one of the things we always said was, we're going to make a decision together based on the best information we have right now.
Good.
and then not second guess it later. Because would you make a different decision if you had more information? Sure. But at some point, you got to fish or cut bait. You got to go. You got to go take out the loan and buy the motorhome and get on the road. And we had a wonderful time. It's just when we realized we were missing out on our grandchildren by being in Arizona all winter. And by the way, they all play basketball, which is a winter sport, 3 states away. We said, for this time, it's not working for us now. And we just said, okay, we did that. We're going to sell the motorhome and we're going to enjoy the kids. And my husband's favorite quote that he says to me all the time, Arizona will still be there when the grandchildren go to college. And we may change our mind. We may not want to go back to Arizona. We may want to do something different. So I think for us, Marlene, it was having the decision for conversation versus the conversation for decision, right? There's pressure when you're having a conversation to make a decision. Got to make the decision. Now we just have it for possibility. What is possible? And then we leave it there until we're both ready to make a decision. Because there's a lot of pressure when you think, if I say yes, we're going to do it. It's like, no, we're just talking about it. And being distinct in your language, I think, helped us.
Yes, very good. And see, a mistake happens when we judge it as a mistake. If you recognize I'm in here learning and growing as the amazing human being that I am, then you don't have to judge it as a mistake. That was part of my learning and growing. I learned about some really wonderful places in the United States. And I also learned the value that my grandchildren and having contact with them has for me. So now you're in even a better place to, what is it that I want? Now you know even more clearly to answer that question.
Yeah. But you do have to take a step forward, and you do need to experiment and then forgive yourself and your spouse if over time it's not working, and not use that against them. Like, well, you wanted to buy the motorhome and I didn't. You need to kind of keep short accounts because, all these things cost money. And of course, you're worried about money when you're retired. But we're learning you can't take it with you. We reviewed a book a little bit ago called Die with Zero, not literally die with zero, but to live your life because you don't know how long you have. Saving all this money until you're 90 and your health is gone.
Yes.
You could have done a lot of things in your 60s if you'd known you're going to live that long. And chances are you won't run out of money if you've got insurance and, you've got ways to plan for it. Kathy got people ready for retirement, and then she watched them just not do anything fun. They hoarded their money. And it's like, okay, how's that working for you?
Yep. And remember, too, some of these decisions that we made during COVID were different decisions than we would have made.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, this is a time that went down in history, and we've lived that. And what is the Chinese curse? May you live in interesting times, or something like that. So these have been interesting times. Thank goodness we've moved beyond that. I mean, COVID still lives with us, but we're not. The reason why people did motorhomes is because you could not do anything else. You couldn't travel during that time. And it was very interesting for me to get to live vicariously through Barbara when she was off doing her traveling. That was fun for me and the listeners as well. So we've written it down, and we've compared if we're in a relationship. We've compared if we're not in a relationship. We've got this list. So now what do we do?
Okay, so is it a prioritized list? Did we prioritize our list?
Yeah, we prioritized it.
Okay. Then we start with item number 1 and look at, does the person have the resources for this, meaning the emotional and mental resources for this, not necessarily just the financial resources? And how do we add to their experience in being able to do it? And once we kind of allocate what that's going to be, we look at what's the time involvement that this is going to take, and what are the blanks that we still have left to be able to go on to item number 2. And as we're going through item number 1 and not item number 2, did we miss anything that really needs to be in this picture as well? when I'm working with clients, I'm working with their emotional ability to be resilient and also to begin to reframe things and begin adjusting their mindset. Because the truth is, as far as fear is concerned, Shakespeare says the only thing we have to fear is fear itself. We create our own fear. Okay, fear is a really interesting thing. So we create our own thing to be afraid of. And then we do this amazing mental presto changeo thing in which we forget that we created it and we start responding to it like it's real. Okay. And the truth of the matter is, wait a second. No, I created that. And since I created to be afraid about that, I could create to be something different about that. I could create to be curious about that. I could create to be interested about that. I can create, this is mindset now, I can create what serves me in pursuing this goal. And we do that anyway. I created the thing to be afraid of. I created the fear. So I've already shown myself I can create an emotion about something. It's just maybe I want to create a supportive emotion about it, an encouraging emotion about it. And we will start working with those ideas, which are fundamental ideas, but many times the clients that come to me have never really dealt with that.
Mm.
Okay. So they've never dealt with these. Are they able to come up with a list?
Yes, they are.
Okay.
Sometimes not a really, really thorough list. And once we've dealt with some elements like what's important to you, what do you value, and making sure that there is purpose and meaning in your life, they end up adding some new elements to their list. So things that didn't make it to start with, start to make it. And now they're getting to the heart of things that really matter to them.
Okay. Give us some examples of some things that you've seen. It could be your list. It could be someone else's list. Give us some ideas of things you've seen on lists. If we have a listener who has no idea what they want to do, they don't know where to start their list, give us a starting place.
Okay. When I've had clients like that, I already told you my preferred modus, and that was go back to your childhood and tell me things that really you enjoyed, really were a big part of your day that mattered to you a lot. Because often we've already shown ourselves some of the things that are dearest for us and beginning to work in that. I've had clients remember that as a child, they liked to draw. Okay. And they spent a lot of time drawing, and they had lots of art books filled, okay, with their drawings. And then life came on and important things to do came on, and they didn't have time for the more creative elements for themselves. But now they can actually resurrect that. And not only do they do drawing, but they've wanted to do art classes. They've wanted to learn even more to add to their skills. And so just bringing that forward and recognizing, okay, what stands in your way? What do we need to look at in order for you to pursue that?
For example, there could be some Ollie classes near them where there's some art. Ollie is, for the listener who doesn't know, universities. I forget, it's called the Ochsner. Do you know what Ollie stands for? The Ochsner Lifelong Learning something or other. But anyway, they partner with universities and they give these 2-3 hour classes. You join for a few dollars, and then the classes are either free or they're $10-15. So that's an Ollie class. And then also like senior centers, right? A lot of times they have art classes in senior centers. If you're in a 55 and older community, sometimes there's art clubs. I'm involved in an art club and I give free drawing classes, free painting classes in the art club. I'm just finishing up. Well, I've got 2 more classes to present, but I'm teaching non-artists how to do a portrait. And so like you said, there are ways to do that. And if you don't live near a senior center, if you don't live near, an Ollie, if you don't live near a university, guess what? There are thousands of online art classes that you can take.
And what do you get out of doing the teaching?
What I get out of it is I love seeing somebody who didn't think they were creative. I love that spark. Actually, what got me started with this particular series is I took a cruise. I don't know. Time is not like, I can't remember when I do things, but I went on a transatlantic, I think it was last year, and there were 10 sea days in a row. It was a 14-day cruise from Miami to Barcelona and 10 solid days in a row. And I thought, what am I going to do for 10 days on this ship with nothing, I mean, yes, there were things to do. And so I reached out to Royal Caribbean and I said, do you want me to teach an art class for free? I can teach maybe 5, 6 out of the 10 days. I said, you don't have to pay me. You don't have to give me a free room because I'm already a paid customer. And they said yes. And that was an experience because it wasn't what I expected. I didn't have a classroom. I taught in a bar. There was no real good drawing materials. And then they gave us golf pencils to draw with. It was fun. And people on the ship, like my husband and I would walk around. The ship had 5,000 people on it. People would recognize me because I had 50 people in each of my classes. So it was really fun. And then when I got back, I said, I want to do that for my community. So I took what I had learned from that. I call it a grid drawing class because you don't have to be artistic to draw the way that I taught.
Yes.
And, I just saw so many people. And on that cruise, I had a gentleman who 2 weeks after we got home sent me a picture that he had drawn of his baby granddaughter. Oh. And he said, I'm so thankful that you taught. This is why I like to teach that kind of thing, because people who have never done something like that before can learn that they are artistic and they can do it. So that's what I like, the spark.
Good job.
Thanks.
And I have seen those success stories too of people who start out, they don't know what they're going to do in their retirement. And then once they get in touch with what really matters to them, they realize they can use many of the skills they developed in their profession in very, very creative ways and still move forward with that.
I think this is why Barb and I like living in a 55 and older community, because you have ideas of things that you might not have done. Like, for example, I don't know if Barb, if you want to talk about your trip that you are going to be making for 100 miles.
Oh, well, I live in a community and we have this bicycle club, and I had an e-bike, but they're doing this fundraiser called Reach the Beach, and it's going from my town all the way out to the ocean. I live in the West Coast in Washington State. And so I thought, I can do that. I can get myself in shape over the next 4 or 5 months to ride 100 miles in one day. I can do it. So I went and bought a bike. It's a luxury, wonderful bike. To Kathy's point, the exposure to people that are different than you, different cultures, different educational background is just so fascinating. And I guess that's something I wanted to delve in a little bit more. I really was intrigued by what you said about the thinking that is a barrier to people, right? Yeah. It's their thought life. They make up this story of fear. And I've been working on getting in better shape, losing some weight. And what I've learned is through this cognitive behavior therapy, which I'm sure you know all about, you're a PhD. But so oftentimes when we set a goal like losing weight or getting in shape, the conversation we have in our head is distorted. It's not true. And the thoughts become reality. And so what I've been learning to do is to identify when I've talked myself out of something, is that truthful or have I got distorted thinking? And so oftentimes when we're stressed, I've been learning that, oh, I shouldn't have eaten that. Well, let's just forget the whole diet. I'm not going to be successful. So maybe you could talk a little bit about thought distortion and black and white thinking, because we just seem to just dump right into that. How you're teaching your clients to be more resilient and to, dust themselves off, get back up and, get back to the list. Could you share a little bit about your perspective of what I just said?
Yes, absolutely. Because I am a firm disciple of the fact that our subconscious mind creates what we're thinking. And it doesn't care what it creates. If we're thinking I can't do it, we get I can't do it. It's thinking I can do it, we get I can do it. I might not have the skills yet. I may need to learn some things, but I can be there and I can do that if I'm willing to invest that time and energy. So absolutely, it is crucial where our mindset is. What I suggest to clients is that they listen to their thoughts, because a lot of times thoughts run through and they haven't even noticed what they were thinking and what they were therefore implanting to their subconscious mind. So they listen to their thoughts first, be aware of them, and ask themselves, says who? Okay, so they just heard a very definitive statement of, that would be so hard to be able to make that happen. And so my comment to them, if they say that to me, is, if you wish, or that could be very doable because I'm going to break it down in steps and I'm just going to chomp away at it. And pretty soon I'm going to have all those skills and be there. So says who? Often the answer is someone in my past. Mm-hmm. I picked that up as a kid and didn't even realize I'd heard them say that and had internalized it myself and been operating on it all these years. But when they answer says who, they can start getting the idea, is that truth for me? And maybe there was a time it worked that way. Is it still truth for me? And do I want it to continue to be truth for me? Because I can choose.
I love what you're saying, because oftentimes when I talk to somebody who thinks they're not artistic, it was a school teacher or a parent or somebody that told them they were not. And, you know, most kids, they pick up a pencil, they pick up a crayon, they don't care until someone tells them you're doing it wrong. So you're so correct.
As you were talking, Doctor, I was thinking about a woman I've met over the last few weeks. Her name is Josephine, and she is a lovely Japanese descent American. And she's 70 and lives in my community. And she was told you can't swim. And so she had never learned to swim. Mm-hmm. And she wanted to learn to swim, but was deathly afraid of drowning in 3 inches of water, because I'm sure either culturally or her parents, somebody told her that. Mm-hmm. And she's 70. And I've watched this other gal in our neighborhood for the last 6 weeks teaching her, and she just got her face in the water. And I went out and bought goggles for her and gave them to her as a gift, because I said, I am so proud of you to conquer your fear. And she goes, well, the water's still trying to kill me. And I said, but celebrate what you've done. And she got the goggles and she got one of the little paddles and she was kicking her feet and she was just overcome with excitement. Now, does she have a long ways to go before she actually is swimming? But in 6 weeks, she went from being, I'm going to die and I'm going to drown, to getting her face in the water. And she's going twice a week. So I guess it's a lesson for me that you can do anything, but it takes your mind and your willingness and a commitment and a friend who is exceedingly patient. Mm-hmm. But even at 70, you can learn how to swim if you can overcome your fear. So I loved what you said, and I wanted to tell that story because as soon as you said it, it just triggered me like, that's Josephine's story in a nutshell.
Exactly.
I love it. Yeah, I love it.
You know, neuroplasticity in the brain science has proven that we are able to learn throughout our entire lifetime. So there's no longer a can't teach old dogs new tricks. It might take longer. We might have to unlearn more things because we learned more things in that time. But our ability to learn spans our entire lifetime.
That's great.
Well, that's an amazing conclusion.
Absolutely. And what a great way to end the show. So, Dr. Scheipel, if somebody wants to learn more about your practice, learn more about what we've talked about today, how would they reach out to you?
I have a special gift that I've prepared for anyone that would like to receive it. And that is a retirement ready checklist to look at various dimensions that are important in retirement and how ready are you to undertake in this particular area. And Kathy and Barb have promised that they are going to get that information out. So if you want to accept this gift and use it for yourself, there's contact information in it. My phone number is in there. And also some of the other ideas as far as retirement are in there. And I would be delighted to have your audience be willing to accept my gift and bring it into their lives. Make their lives better by using it.
Yeah, I can't wait to see it. We can maybe put a link in the show notes if we have them, or...
Well, we can, but not everybody goes to the show notes. So I don't know if you want to say the website, the address.
It is called the Retirement Readiness Checklist, and the URL, the web address is https:// That's B like boy, I, T like Tom, .ly / retirement-readiness checklist. https://bit.ly / retirement-readiness checklist.
Perfect. And I just typed that in and I was able to get there. So thank you so much. Listener, go get your retirement readiness checklist. And we will see you next time on the Rock Your Retirement Show. Bye.
Bye.
Bye.